Hello everyone, today we're going to make this amazing rosemary focaccia bread in our solar oven, the GoSun Fusion. This recipe is pretty simple to make because it requires few ingredients, but it does require some patience. Let's get started. We are going to start with the main ingredients, which are 4 cups of bread flour, just 4 cups of flour in a large bowl. To that, we're going to add 2 teaspoons of salt, 1 packet of yeast. Take a fork or a spatula, whatever you have on hand, and mix these ingredients so they get distributed. Okay, to this mixture, we are going to add just over 2 cups of warm water. And this is where you want to make sure that you have really clean hands because you're going to mix the dough with your hands. Just get in there. It's going to be a little messy, but it'll be okay. The warm water is essential to help the yeast rise. So you want to get out all the pockets of dry flour that might be in there by kneading this bread together. It should be kind of stringy like this. Okay, once it's looking pretty homogeneous, should take a few minutes. Just let your bread rest, just like this. Don't touch it anymore for about 5 to 10 minutes. Just let it rest. You can put it to the side while you wash your hands. Now that the dough that we made has rested for about 5 to 10 minutes, we're going to take a slightly larger bowl so that there's enough room for the bread to rise. We're going to grease it, pour this dough into it, and you might need to use a spatula for this or your hands. Give the top of your dough a little spray. Then cover the bowl with cellophane or anything else that you want to cover it with, but use something that will not allow any odors or moisture or anything else, any smells from your fridge to get into your dough. You want it really tightly sealed. And then you're going to put this in your refrigerator for 24 up to 48 hours. 24 hours later, it should look like this. So I'm going to peel back. See how it's nice and bubbly? You can kind of smell it. It's a bit yeasty in smell. It's risen beautifully. It's about double the size of what it was when I first put it in. And yeah, this looks really good. So it takes some time to make this bread, but the ingredients are super simple. Some flour, some salt, some yeast. Let it rise with a slow, cold rise, yeasty rise in the refrigerator. And then the next day you can start baking it. So let's transfer this to the GoSun Fusion and put the rest of our ingredients in and take it out to bake. We have our dough here that's been cold in the refrigerator. We just took it out of the refrigerator. We're gonna set this aside while we prepare our GoSun tray. I have some olive oil here, and I'm gonna spread this olive oil using this little spatula on the inside of the tray. And I'm doing this because the bread, I'm just gonna put it directly into this tray and I don't want it to stick. And I also want the olive oil to give the bread some nice flavoring. So, liberally putting olive oil all over this tray. Alternatively, if you don't like the idea of using olive oil for greasing your tray because it's too oily or you want your bread to be a little bit on the drier side, you can use parchment paper instead. Just cut a rectangular piece that fits into your tray and you can use that. I'm going to take my dough and spread it out on this tray. And there is no real elegant way of doing this.
Now you let the dough rise again in the GoSun tray. This might take half an hour to another hour.
I picked this rosemary from my garden, about 3 sprigs of rosemary, and I'm going to just tear off the little leaves. If you get fresh rosemary, which I highly recommend, you should definitely do this. Fresh rosemary is much better for this recipe than dried rosemary. So you take your fresh rosemary and you just peel off all the little leaves. It's so fragrant.
Ta-da! Rosemary for our focaccia bread.
The dough that we put in our GoSun tray did rise, as you can see. It took a little bit more than half an hour, and I wanted to comment quickly on that. It can take different amounts of time depending on where you live and what temperature it is in your house for the dough to rise to get to this level. But basically what you're looking at is for it to really get big and kind of bubbly, and then you know it's done. Then you wash your hands really well and you dimple the dough like so. Dimple it. Just stick your fingers in it and dimple it. Then you're going to take about 1/4 cup of olive oil and drizzle that in those dimples liberally. All right, so that's a good amount. We didn't use the full 1/4 cup. I'm gonna take my rosemary, the 3 sprigs that I got, and I'm going to sprinkle that all along the top. Make sure it gets covered in that oil to help prevent it from burning, and it'll instead infuse the bread with flavor. So you wanna kind of tap the rosemary into it. Make sure that it's covered in the oils. Oh my God, this is gonna be so good. And then I'm gonna take a pinch of salt. That's maybe half a teaspoon in there. I'm gonna take a pinch of it and spread some out on top of my bread. We didn't really put a whole lot of salt in the bread, so this will really give it like that extra kick of flavor that it needs. Okay, now we're gonna take this beautiful focaccia bread and bake it using the power of the sun. So I have my bread here ready to go. I'm putting it in my GoSun. This is about as much sun as I can find this afternoon, and we'll see how long it takes to cook. I'm gonna check on it in about an hour. So I had to move the GoSun because the sun changed. Oh my gosh, look at that. I think it's ready. Like that golden brown crust. The bread rose substantially. It smells amazing. I think we're ready to take this inside. It's been about 2 hours. So I took the bread out and I'm letting it rest for a few minutes before I attempt to take it out of the tray. But doesn't that look amazing?
So in order to eat your bread, I recommend taking a knife and gently running it around the edges of the tray to make sure that no bread is stuck to the sides. Then you can slice the bread and pop it out. It should be delicious, light, fluffy, fragrant rosemary focaccia bread, ready to enjoy. So bon appetit, my friends, and thank you for watching this episode of how to make focaccia bread. I hope this recipe works out for you.